Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. Yep. Work. They can hear us, it seems.
Perfect.
Message received. All right. How many are we? 46, it seems. All right. Okay, good evening, everyone. If it's evening where you are, it's here anyway. So I was tasked by Michi to provide the opening lines to this live stream. So maybe for anyone who's new and has never seen the actual faces of us, of this team. So I'm Martin. I'm the founder and director of Similogics, and I founded Similogics together with, not Similogics, I founded Similogics, and I started Prosperous Universe together with Michi in 2015. And Michi, that's the guy who's drinking tea right now. That's that one, exactly. So he's the guy who you're always interacting with on Discord, mostly. Like, I pop in every now and then, but not much anymore these days. And then, of course, there's Fabian, who's our game designer. And he's primarily working on Prosperous Universe. He helps me out with our other title, Airline Sim, every now and then. Although the distribution of work at this point is more or less I'm doing the old stuff and the other guys are doing the fun new stuff. So that sort of maybe is a good entry point to a quick update on Similogics as a company. So as you know, we've had a couple of funding projects over the past few years. One of them being the mobile interface, what feels like many years back. And then the one that we recently finished is the politics and infrastructure project, which Michi, I think, is on the final stretch to wrapping up. Like the infrastructure of that infrastructure feature is mostly in place, and he's basically putting the finishing touches on the actual first politics controlled infrastructure project, being gateways. That's sort of the official aspect of that. Maybe a few words on the impact of these projects. So while they've been going on, Similogics at times anyway was quite a bit bigger than it is now. Like, I think our top headcount was somewhere at 6, 7, depending on how you count. We've shrunk quite a bit in 2024 with the funding money running out. We kind of had to scale down a little bit, unfortunately. So Fabian here is only working part-time for us at the moment, and Lena, who's our community manager, primarily over at Airline Sim, is also on part-time these days, which is in part due to personal and organizational reasons. I mean, maybe if you find the time, you could check out the Airline Sim YouTube channel. We have I just released an update video there yesterday. Also a sort of state of the game, which provides a little bit of context on all of this. But the bigger issue at this point is really that there aren't the same sort of funding project available anymore that we've used over the past few years. That project has ended due to minor economical issues in Germany. And as such, we have to basically do it on our own based on the cash flow that we got. So that's sort of the slightly depressing state of things in pure, boring, dry economical terms. But yeah, we're coping, I guess. We're managing and we're continuing we're doing. A lot of that stuff is sort of influenced by my personal situation, I have to admit, and that also influences, for example, things like our supporter tier perks. Maybe I'm going to preface this real quick. There has never ever, I think, at least not for the big or expensive stuff, never ever has anyone ever asked for the physical perks. Like we've been offering them for many years, and we've never had anyone complain about them not arriving. That said, we of course want to fulfill those perks sooner or later. So the regular goodie bag sort of stuff, so like this stuff here, this you will get on a somewhat irregular schedule, I guess. So at the moment, I'm sort of in between living situations. I'm in a temporary apartment right now, and I'm not going to start shipping perks from here. All of that stuff is wrapped up in a big box somewhere, and I'm not going to touch that until I've moved to our final home, which is hopefully going to happen sometime in spring next year. And once that has happened, we're probably going to release, or we're probably going to do like batches of these goodie bags on a somewhat regular schedule. Like I'm guessing once or twice a year.
Past, right? We did send out many goodie bags.
Yes. Like the perks, the goodie bag perks have gone out several times. It's just that we don't keep. Like the smaller stuff we keep in stock. Like we have some of the things that are in these goodie bags we have on stock at all times. But for example, those shirts, we only order them as we need them, because we don't have the liquidity to just like buy thousands of shirts and then just have them lying around. So we actually order this stuff in batches and then ship whenever it makes sense. That said, we might actually be phasing out physical perks for that very reason. It's just it binds a lot of time, it binds a lot of resources, and honestly, we haven't had a lot of feedback, neither from the people who received the stuff nor from the people who are still waiting for it. So I'm guessing people are actually here for the game, which is a good thing in my books. And especially like the top tier physical perks, like exclusive artworks and such, they cost serious money to produce and to ship and everything. So we're actually considering phasing those things out. Whether that's going to happen with some speculative 1.0 release sometime in the future or sometime before, we don't know yet. But given that people have actually been asking more about non-physical perks like naming star systems, naming planets, and all that sort of stuff, we're actually considering sort of making those virtual perks more accessible, and instead kind of phase out the physical stuff. Yeah, but that's sort of just the quickest update on these things. The other non-physical perks like the soundtrack and a few other things that we have on the list there, they are in the works. And surprisingly, it's taking longer to finish those and all the other stuff. But Julian, who some of you might remember, he's been our marketing manager several years ago, and who we have a gentleman's agreement with that he's going to finish the Prosperous Universe soundtrack at some point in the future, is actually working on this stuff. And hopefully, or maybe 2025, that soundtrack is actually going to see the light of the day. I have a pretty awesome preview already on my disc, and it's great. So stay tuned. And I don't know, company-wise, have I forgotten about anything, Michi, Fabian, or is that the important stuff?
No, I think that's the most important things. You can't end on a positive note about the holiday voucher.
Oh yes. Oh, let me check whether that's working here. Is it working? Let me see. Pro license. Oh yeah. Look at that. If you go to the premium page, then you can see that there's a special 15% discount valid until December 27th. Get it now.
That sounds good.
Yes. Get it while it's hot. And now we're going to switch to ASMR. I'm going to unwrap this.
Enjoy.
Yes.
Okay, but this is the State of the
never mind.
Universe live stream, so let's talk about the state of the universe. So Tai asked in the chat how the player count developed, and I must admit I'm not prepared for that question. Unfortunately, the player count is a bit down for the last few months. We have had some difficulties finding YouTube influencers or streamers in general that are willing to advertise our game, and but we found an agency we are starting to collaborate with, and we hope that bears some fruit and we see some new players early next year. And of course, the Steam release has helped quite a lot, but that has been a while ago, right? Okay, but anyways, let's talk about what we did last year. Let me quickly transition. I hope you guys can see that I opened, I have the forum open with the release notes, and Martin talked about the funding project earlier, and one of the first releases, or the first release for the funding project, was the transmission release. And we have written about that in the devlogs, of course, but one requirement for the funding project, since it's a German one, was that the game is going to be released in German, and the transmission release was all about that. And that was January 26th, so pretty early in the year. If I remember correctly, we had the update basically done right around that time last year. But we weren't willing to release right before Christmas. That's always like a gamble, because we enjoy our holidays, and yeah, you know how it is. We don't release before holidays and not on Fridays. Anyways, the release had the German translation, and it took us a bit longer to implement that, because we also implemented the whole translation pipeline, and we had the community translations already in mind. That's something we did for Airline Sim as well, and we'll get back to that later, because I think there's an extra release for the community translations. But anyways, that was also in terms of player count, that boosted the player count quite a bit, because we could mark German as an official language in Steam, and we want to do the same with the community translations once they are complete. I think, now I'm talking about community translations again, but while we're here, why not? There are quite a few that are almost complete. I think Spanish, Chinese, and Russian, and they are already available in the game, but we haven't marked them as supported in Steam yet, because we want to translate a few of our backend systems as well. So players arriving that don't speak English or German can play the game and create their account and everything, manage their account in their native language. Okay, going to the next release. That was on February, and that was a maintenance release. I think the biggest changes were that we added some filters to the contracts and to contracts overview, and to the community exchange order screen, and lots of details. And we changed that ships can be repaired anywhere. We did some balancing, as we do usually with these maintenance releases, and of course some bug fixes. I think that was a pretty typical maintenance release. Jumping ahead. And then we did the Realpolitik update, which was the first content release for the politics and infrastructure funding project, and that one I really liked. I mean, that was one major update to the game, and it took quite a bit of work to get it done, and I remember when we were, I think it was a weekly team meeting or so, and we were looking at at the admin center commands of Prometheus and all the major planets, and we're really, and we saw that so many people try to get a position in the parliament, and that was really nice to see. And from a technical point, we didn't see many errors or bugs with the government system. I mean, given that we introduced the whole context system where you can have many, or at least now we have two, but eventually you can have as many as you want contexts, where you can switch between your company context and the government context. That was a major change in the system, and I think it went pretty good. So there was no major game-breaking or show-stopping bugs, and I really enjoy. I'm a governor in two systems just to see how it works, and I really
Just
like.
bragging a little
And
bit.
two planets, not systems. Sorry, no, I mean they're pretty empty. I'm just governing myself here, but I really enjoy working with the context system.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the major pain points that players addressed was that accounting for governors was so difficult. Basically, what we saw is that governors created their own corporations just so it was easier, so they could get all the money from the fees and taxes, and so they can manage the office, so to speak. And now with government accounting, that went away, and I think that was a great improvement.
I mean, I also want to highlight in that context, that these contexts. I mean, you're always supposed to not be doing framework building, and that was pretty much framework building.
Yeah.
But these contexts, they are quite versatile, and I'm really looking forward to other things that we might be using them for. Like, I mean, we had to really cut scope for this politics and infrastructure release because we had a fixed schedule that we had to stick to and a fixed budget for that particular project. So we sort of said, okay, while it would be a really great proof of concept for that system, let's not do it right now. Let's not do it just yet. But we've always had this idea in our heads that those contexts are going to be used, for example, for corporations eventually. So there's going to be a corporation context, and then suddenly things are going to become much easier in managing corporations on the one hand, and then also kind of giving them more functionality akin to what the governments can do. So it's exciting stuff.
Yeah. Okay. There are some minor changes as well, and I think we mentioned there was a maintenance release right after that, and that was this one in July. Right. So we saw the success of PMMG, and we really liked that, and we like all the external tools you guys write for Prosperous Universe. It's always really fun to see what you're coming up with, and sometimes it's kind of depressing how fast you implement all those tools, and we're still stuck with the same feature for a couple of weeks or months. Yeah, and so we stole the burn rate and implemented that in the game because we think that's a really, really great tool for new players as well to see how long the consumables are going to last, and so we integrated that as well. I think that was you, Fabian, right? That wasn't me.
Yeah, I think I did a lot of that stuff because you were busy with the politics framework stuff at the same time. So that's why the maintenance release came so shortly after.
I forgot to mention it earlier. Fabian, every now and then he dives into code as well.
Yeah.
So let's not forget about that.
And then we have the base repair assistant improvements.
You develop stuff and we fix the UI. Yeah, we do the distributed systems part, the part that isn't fun and takes forever. Yeah.
That's true.
It works for me.
All right. And then we had a couple of minor changes as well. Balancing as usual and bug fixes. Okay, let's continue. I think while we are doing or implementing the infrastructure part, we had another maintenance release, this time in August, because I still wasn't done with the infrastructure. And I'm still not yet, but we'll see. But that was basically just a balancing change and some very minor fixes. And I think that was the first time we added community translations in the language selector, so everyone could select them. I think we had it on staging or test environment for quite a while, but now it's possible since that update to actually change the languages. And in case you don't know how the community translations work, basically we have a translation tool, and you can either shoot me a message or just go there and register, and I'll add the necessary permissions, and then you can translate away. And every once in a while, most of the time Monday morning, I just look at what has been translated in the past week and merge it directly onto production. So the turnaround time is about a week for new translations, and it's quite nice because when we translate it into German, the very first translation, I think Fabian and I did that, we quickly discovered how painful it can be, because you only have those little identifiers, and for us it's a bit easier because we know we can just look up in the code where those identifiers go, and then you have all the context of that command, and you know what you're talking about or what you're trying to translate. But if you don't have that context, I think it's pretty important that you can check what you translated and see if it kind of fits in the context of the game. Yeah, so thank you everybody for the translations.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the speed at which these translations happen is kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah,
it's
it's crazy.
Very, very, very impressive. It's
okay. Let's continue this one more. Oh no, that was the last release.
Oh no.
Yeah, those were the updates of 2024.
And yet another year has passed.
That's true.
Aren't we... I mean, I mentioned it earlier, right? We started this in 2015, right, Michi?
Mm-hmm.
So we are approaching 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So what are we going to do next, fall or so? I think that's when you and I started sitting together to do a little bit of game design, right?
I think we do what we do every night. Continue programming for Prosperous Universe.
Okay, you do you.
And sometimes world domination, but not right now.
There was an interesting question here on the chat.
Okay.
When will we have the crossover between Airline Sim and Prosperous Universe, aka transporting people that want to go from A to B, and that affects migration to planets? Serious, not
like
so
that
serious.
It's a question of when.
Yeah, I mean, whenever that topic comes up, I have to sort of retell this anecdote that I probably tell in every Prosperous Universe live stream, that this is actually the second time I'm attempting to do Prosperous Universe quite more successfully than the first time around. But I actually tried doing Prosperous Universe, I think in 2013 or something already. And the idea for the game was even older, much older. When I had the idea for something like Prosperous Universe for the first time, the motivation behind it was actually that I was frustrated with our artificial demand generation in Airline Sim. And I thought, you know what, if I just simulated the whole economy, then I could build a transport game where you as a shipper have, or as you as a transport company have actual shippers as customers. Yes, you know, you have actual demand from actual production facilities to, I don't know, consumers or whatever. And that was kind of the original spark of this whole Prosperous Universe idea. It's since kind of flipped around. Like the transport is more of an afterthought now, or not an afterthought, but it's not the core of the game. But in my vision of the game, sometime in the future, sometime down the road, there is going to be some sort of scheduled shipping offering thing, I guess. Like I we have to have that at some point. I mean, did you even mention yet that we have updated the roadmap, Michi?
No, I haven't.
Are you just waiting for people to find out? No, because I mean we have trade routes on there, which is sort of the tech similar but not quite the same. I mean, what I have in mind is kind of an actual thing, like you would book a flight online, right? You book something in game. You have a certain shipment that you want to get from A to B, so you just book it without any interaction with you and the actual player who offers the transport capacity. So that's kind of my dream, but it's going to take a while. I think it's not even on the roadmap right now as a feature, so probably should add it to the ideas section.
Yeah, we should. Okay, but
I hope that answers your question. I think there's not we don't have any ideas for having actual passenger transport in the game. I think that would maybe go a bit too far, but who knows.
So there's one question I want to answer before jumping into the new roadmap. Is Bruno asked, how's the balance between making new features and improving existing ones? What we usually do is we have like a feature release where we implement a new feature. Mostly they tend to be bigger than what we anticipated, so it takes a while. And then we're doing maintenance releases where we try to add either a minor new feature or improve existing features and bug fixes, of course, and balancing changes. Yeah, so I don't know if there's a ratio, but since it's kind of hard to work on two things at the same time, and I do most of the development work, we do it once after another. Alright, let's jump to the new roadmap. There it is. Okay, so we sat together on Monday, I think it was, and we have been wanting to update the roadmap for a long time, because the one you saw up until now was pretty old. There was stuff on it since, I don't know, since the dawn of the project or when the project began.
Yeah.
And so it was about time to revisit it, and since Fabian has been writing game design documents for a long time now, we have quite a lot of game design or features that are in various stages of being of completeness, so to speak, and it was time to bring order into the chaos, and this is what we came up with. So in progress we have the infrastructure gateways. If you have read the devlogs of the last weeks, you know that this is being developed right now, and this will be the next release. We can talk a bit about a really necessary maintenance release later on, and we feel your pain. We have had so many comments about missing quality of life features, but for now I'm mostly working on the gateway infrastructure. Okay, then we have the plan section, and I think the idea behind the plan section was that we actually have design documents for these features, and we want to kind of implement them in the order they're written here. But of course, you know how it is. Sometimes life happens and things change, and but this is the most accurate version so far. Maybe Fabian, you want to go into detail? One or two or three or many of those?
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of them are pretty self-explanatory, like the multi-commodity contracts is something that's always been asked about, which is basically just the ability to include more than one type of item in your contract, which will make things a lot easier and will not force you to have a contract for each thing you're doing on its own. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go into the more vague things on here, or that we didn't talk about yet a lot. For example, the faction influence is something that we've discussed internally a lot, but I think haven't yet really presented to the community. And that's kind of our idea of an end game feature that's kind of, in theory, eternally interesting and dynamic. And the idea there is basically that the factions that are now very static in the game and just sit on certain regions of the universe will then fight more or less over those regions by exerting influence, and will convert or can try to convert adjacent systems to their own faction, and can attack systems that belong to other factions. And so that you kind of have this development of faction influence spreading throughout the universe. And you can kind of imagine it sort of like a browser game military combat game style, where you send X influence towards another system, and then the other system can try to defend by using their influence within their own system. And then you get these waves of influence basically clashing on each other. And the idea is that these decisions where you want to exert influence are made by the governments. So all the governments in the system come together and vote like you would on a local government motion, but they vote on the influence distribution. And the influence itself is generated by every player basically within the system. So everyone can kind of contribute influence, and then your governing players will hopefully make good use of it and kind of conquer the universe for your faction.
I'm really looking forward for that feature, because it's so promising in terms of dynamicness. Sometimes the world of Prosperous Universe can feel a bit static, and that's definitely going to change with the faction influence.
Yeah. Cool feature. It has a distinct lack of railguns and PDCs, but I guess you can't have everything, right?
True.
I mean, those could be a factor of influence.
I'm sorry, that those are not the plan at this point. Just kind of to alleviate your fears. But I mean, I think we're going to get to that on the roadmap eventually, right? If you want to go through it. Anyway, maybe as a quick side note here, someone asked, are these in the order of expected release? I don't think so, right? I think they are roughly, maybe, but there's no there's nothing set in stone. Like I think the further you go down the list, the less concrete it gets. I think that the top two items I think are pretty close. And the user interface upgrade that's on position 3 there is not intended as a one single thing that's going to happen, or that someone is going to work on for 3 months like we usually do, and then it's just going to be released. So it's rather something that we kind of have written down to work on in parallel to all the rest, because it's sort of a continuous effort. But yeah, please continue, Fabian.
What do we have next? Shipping routes. That's more or less quality of life stuff, where you can automate your ships basically, so that they keep flying the same routes and then keep repeating the same actions. So, for example, pick up commodity X at location A and then fly to location B and unload everything, and then keep repeating. And I think that's also something that has been asked for quite a lot over the years.
Yeah, I think it will make it kind of, yeah, it's a quality of life thing, as you said. I mean, it's so much easier, for example, if you have like an resource site and you want to fly all your ore to a station or to a plant to smelt it, and from there fly to the station, and then you can basically do that automatically. And I think you didn't mention it yet, but those shipping routes will work as like you create one shipping route and then you can assign many ships to it or remove if need be.
The idea is that they are independent from your ships, basically. So even if you build a new ship later, you can assign it to an already existing shipping route.
So it really is only a small step to actually selling that capacity, isn't it? I mean, slap on some flight numbers, and you're good to go.
And then do the crossover with airline sim.
Yes, on April 1st, I guess. We did have April. We did have maybe just because that I just had to think of that. We had a April Fool's joke for airline sim once many years ago, which was called Spaceline Sim or something. I think I spent 1 week of doing a completely pointless reskin of the game and replaced all the aircraft with spaceship, and then let that one run for I think a couple of days or something. Few people wanted to keep it, but it was not functional. So sorry. Back to the main programming.
I just wanted to answer the auto refuel question in chat, because refueling is also part of the steps we have in mind for the shipping routes, so that you can pick up stuff or unload stuff, or also refuel.
Yeah, I think
whatever fuel you may need.
We talked about the refueling thing in one of our weekly meetings, but it was quite a while ago, and it's not on the features list, but we can imagine that governments could build like a fuel station, and that would like act as a gas station, and everyone passing that station could auto refuel their ships, and there could be like an infrastructure. And we also we had the idea that you could build like a building on your base that auto refuels your ships, but I'm not sure. You have to tell us how much of a pain point that is. For the handful of ships I have, it's not not that much of a problem.
Yeah, I'm whenever that topic comes up, I mention ports, and then I have to become quiet again and leave the room, because I'm not really that involved in the game anymore, in the game design. So, like, Fabian just looks at me like this, and Michi stays awkwardly quiet, and I say, "But ports are cool. Port are the thing that you're talking about."
I write it down in a.
Oh, right, exactly. I've taken my notes. Yes, right. So maybe it's a post-reset thing. I don't know.
Oh no, you said reset. Now we have to answer the question from Bruno, Frantic, right? Is there a reset inside? No, not at the moment.
No.
I mean, if you look, if you're going through the roadmap, there's plenty of things for us to implement where we don't need a reset. And if we don't have to, I don't think we will in the near future.
I mean, here's a comment. It's pretty tedious to refuel, but I only fuel at the CX. So building something on a planet to do it wouldn't make sense for me. But I mean, that's I guess we have a couple of features that sort of address that, right? I mean, if you look at the roadmap, we have the storefronts and the refueling as part of the shipping lanes. So as long as you not shipping lanes, help me out. Shipping routes, there we go. So as long as you have storage somewhere, be it a CX or somewhere else, you can use that feature, right?
Yeah. Okay, back to the roadmap.
Yeah, then we have space elevators, which is one of the many ideas we had for infrastructure projects during the politics and infrastructure funding project that Michi mentioned. We landed on the gateways now as the first one because they are kind of more impactful, we feel, and you can really shape the universe. But space elevators actually are also pretty cool, as they are like a sci-fi trope, I guess, that is very much liked by a lot of people, and it also makes sense in our game because you don't have to land on planets or take off anymore, but you can just drop off your stuff at the space elevator and then it gets transported down to the base or up from your base. Yeah, of course, that's another feature where you can quickly get into very complex territory, like how do you handle the capacity of the elevator? What if it's full? Do you have a queue of materials, and how long do you have to wait until they arrive? And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that can be done here, but that's not yet set in stone how complex we want to go on the first iteration. But yeah, there'll be some simulation of limited capacity to also make the whole infrastructure management aspect more interesting and give you a reason to upgrade it or to have multiple elevators operated by different companies on the same planet and stuff like that.
And I think someone already asked earlier what this cyclical progression actually
I call
means.
it cyclical. I don't know if it's
okay.
Yeah, that's a pretty game designery term, I think.
Yeah.
What it basically means is that you restart just for yourself. Like, it's not a reset for everyone, but every player can individually decide if they want to restart and when. But you don't just kill your account and restart, basically, but you actually do it as a part of the gameplay, and you get some kind of reward for it. Like, in the simplest form would be like a badge or achievement or something that you made it, basically, and then you get to start on a new playthrough of the game. And usually this comes with some kind of variant or challenge. So one playthrough might ask you to reach a certain number of bases, and another one might ask you to gain a certain amount of money or something like that. And then you try to go for that goal, basically, and then restart. And yeah, this is also something I think inspired by many players who like the early game and like making plans and yeah, finding their niche in the universe, who like that part best, basically. And yeah, at some point some players can reach a state where they are like, where everything's going well, basically, but they just have to maintain and keep doing what they're already doing, and they would like to go back to this planning phase or go into different directions, but they would kind of have to yeah, they already have too much time that they have to invest into maintaining what they already have. So and restarting just by completely wiping your account might feel really bad, like everything's gone. And if you at least get the badge, I did this, I was the CEO of the company that achieved this, then you can kind of move on to your next challenge, basically.
Okay. I think we have talked about the energy feature in the past because so many of you mentioned it in the chat.
Yeah.
But I was not sure on what location.
Yeah,
it has been on the roadmap for a while, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to, but I have to. It's more of a post reset feature, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, it would be really tough to implement in a
we
running
could
universe.
graft it onto the current version, but it would be a pain, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because you basically have two options. Either you force everyone to use energy for everything from a certain point in time on, and that's just going to ruin everything. Or you only add energy to whatever comes after point in time X, and then it's going to be a niche thing that doesn't make sense in relation to all the rest of the universe. So it sounds very post resetty to me.
Yep.
Okay.
But it's a great feature. I mean, it's I mean, it's maybe to kind of to take one step back and sort of go up one level of abstraction is that with all the features that we're adding now, we always have this. We always consider that politics and infrastructure aspect to it, and energy is a great feature in that regard because you can it's both interesting from an infrastructure point of view, like having having energy provided by a certain shared infrastructure, which makes it more efficient and or cheaper or whatever. But at the same time, having politics control and steer the grid, so to speak, and how things are supposed to be done. So that kind of capitalizes on the stuff that we've been doing for the past 2 years or so.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. Double the subscriptions because we have 2 universes running. Yeah, that would be nice, but I doubt it.
That's the ticket.
I think it would be 2 universes, each half in size at most, and then you have twice the cost at in smaller and less active universes, I'm afraid.
There's one question from Hectorino about energy. If you can generate your own energy or can you buy it? And the answer is both. Like the design document we have right now is pretty long and elaborate, and basically you would have to create in the simple form you can create your own energy, and if you don't have enough, then you can buy from a planetary grid, so to speak, and you can also just create energy with your base and sell it off to the grid for profit. And yeah, it would be a new kind of market. It would be the energy market, and every planet would have one.
Yeah, it would be an energy market that will probably in one way or another follow like real world energy markets. Those were fun design decisions. The design meetings where we sort of realized, aren't we just modeling that energy market right now? Like we came up with all the edge cases and all the things that we have to consider and how it would work to figure out how the prices work, and then we realized, look at that Wikipedia article. We basically wrote down the rules for an energy market or something like that. Fun stuff.
All right. Time's progressing. Let's keep on going and go through the last few items we have on the list. Next one is one of your favorites, Martin, right? Storefronts.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of storefronts. Yes.
Okay, what's it about?
Oh, I have to explain now. All right. Okay. I mean, storefronts is basically just that. So at the moment, we basically have two types of three, depending on how you see it. But either you have like contract-based trading, be it through local markets or contracts or whatever, or you have like a proper full-on commodity exchange with double-sided, or not double-sided, but an order book basically. And storefronts is pretty much just the idea of having a store. Like you offer products at a fixed price, and as long as you have capacity, people can buy it from that store without any fuss about contracts or whatever. I mean, the condition for that is, of course, that it's actually this transaction is possible. So you have to have your ship, or you have a warehouse with enough space, and you have to have the money, and everything happens immediately. It's an instant transaction without any sort of there's no delay. It's instant, right? And it could, of course, also work in the other way around. So you could also buy stuff in that fashion, which would maybe be interesting for governments, for example, that want to supply their infrastructure or something in that way, without having like one specific contractor who provides that stuff, but just buy it off the market in that way. And of course, something that I've always sort of envisioned is like that we have like a traveling salesman sort of NPC that could be helping out new players, where they have a local storefront that they can just buy stuff from that they need as a new player, without having to fly to an exchange for hours or something, and just get access to these materials in the beginning, and then we sort of phase that out. But that's just one idea. You get like you know how a store works. Like, I think everyone has been to a store before. Was that enough of a description?
I think so. Okay, and then the next one on the list is the experts rework. And right now, how it works is you have experts on every planet or on every base you have. And if you want to move the base, the experts are basically gone. And we think that leads to a lot of vertical integration. And while that's good to some amount, it kind of prevents players maybe from expanding in or getting into one product category specifically. So one idea is, and I think the plans are not very elaborate yet for the experts rework, but one idea was like to remove the experts from the sites and move them into the HQ, and then you could assign the experts to your bases as need be. And if you want to move a base because you don't need it at that place anymore, you just deactivate the experts and you can reactivate them on another planet. And I think there was a second aspect as well, right, Fabian?
Yeah, there was also the aspect of or the fact that we would like to have veteran players move up the tech tree more and not compete so much with entry-level commodities. And that's why we're thinking about making experts not only useful for high-level commodities, but more useful. So if you produce stuff that takes higher tiers of workers, then your experts will give you an even larger bonus. So that's like an incentive to move up the tech tree along with your experts, basically.
And then we have the next features, interest groups. And I think interest groups have been in the politics and infrastructure release, and we moved it out because of scope issues. And basically that's a rather small feature, but as a player you can join multiple interest groups, and you can stay in your corporation at the same time. So for example, you could form an interest group that funds new players in the Antares region, for example, or you fund an interest group for a government or I don't know what. And you can be in there and coordinate with other players and join and leave as you wish. And it's just a way to organize players, basically. Because corporations are a neglected feature for a long time now. And we feel that having a kind of a group feature or chat feature that's not that heavy as corporations, or as we envision corporations, if we ever have time to implement them as we want, interest groups can be a nice feature in the meantime.
Yeah, I think in the context of the politics feature, we imagined interest groups sort of being a lightweight sort of party, like a political party thing.
Yeah,
could be a political party.
Possible, yeah.
But I think that's why we named it interest groups, because it could actually be anything. So it could be some Beans fan club or something.
Okay, moving on to a next infrastructure project we have in mind, and that is space stations.
I like that one.
Yeah.
It's basically meta infrastructure because it can contain other infrastructure inside of it.
Building your own planets. Tiny, but still.
Very tiny planets.
Tiny planets. But I mean, what else is a planet than something that has plots? Right.
Right. Okay, the last two are almost self-explanatory. When we moved on to Steam, of course, the Steam achievements have been a topic, and we didn't implement any so far, but it's not off the table yet. And maybe in the future we will implement an achievement system. Maybe it goes hand in hand with the cyclical progression, where certain achievements can only be done in a certain progression or cycle. We'll see. It's pretty far down the list because, yeah, we want to do it eventually, but don't know when yet. And of course, friends referral is kind of a meta thing. I don't know. Maybe the idea is basically if you invite a friend or some person to the game and they buy pro time, then you will receive also a little amount of pro time as an incentive to invite other players to the game. All right, we have two more sections. Let's just briefly cover them. We have the future. That's basically things we want to do in the future, but we don't have any concrete design documents or plans for it. And I think asteroid mining, Martin, you mentioned it before stream that it's in the wrong place. It should be in ideas, right? So let's start with population development. That's what Martin talked about earlier. Or did you? Yeah, you did.
Sort of. I mean, it's sort of related, but population development is definitely my baby. I mean, I'm a fan of simulating stuff, and population development really is just that. So that at the moment, basically every company has their own like dedicated workforce, sort of not slaves. I mean, you feed them, but you don't pay them, right? So they're technically slaves, I guess. I'm not sure. Anyway, the idea is that every planet, or maybe even space stations or any other structure in space, actually has a population that becomes yet another resource, so to speak. I think that's a kind of negative way of putting it, but you get what I mean. You have a population. That population develops based on various factors. It also kind of supplies itself. So this population would buy their own supplies. You wouldn't have to provide it to them, at least not directly. And then in turn, you would have to pay your workers a wage. And obviously, since we're talking about Prosperous Universe, a market ensues. Again, politics plays a big part here because you could implement all sorts of policies for population, just like in the real world. Like you could have a no policies at all sort of planet, or you could have one where we have the whole thing with education and healthcare and pensions, you name it. This is sort of the idea that's been floating around ever since we've started Prosperous Universe. And we actually, the very, very, very first versions, that when we started implementing a workforce, that's sort of where we started.
Yeah.
And then we decided, let's keep that level of complexity for another day. And it's been lingering on the roadmap ever since.
Yeah. Okay, then we have the additional exchanges, and that's basically just another module for a space station, for example. You could have a commodity exchange that's run by a player, government, or corporation, and we imagine these additional exchanges to be modular as well. So you could start with a ore exchange, for example, or maybe a ship equipment commodity exchange, and you would have modules that contain the brokers, and then trading can start. And as you have enough money to add additional brokers, you could upgrade these exchanges.
I mean, an important point here with this one, I think, is that, I mean, someone mentioned it on the chat earlier, that Johnny Smith here, the reason veteran players compete with low-level players is because selling 100,000 of something on the CX takes up no space, so they can infinitely store materials.
Yeah, true.
I think that for these additional exchanges or player-run exchanges, obviously that lack of constraints wouldn't be a given. So basically, if you offered an exchange for a particular material, then you would also have to offer the respective space. Like the trading capacity of your exchange would be limited by how much physical space you're actually able to offer. That makes them a classic infrastructure topic, right?
Yeah. Okay, tariffs.
It's also one of my babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, politics, policy, tariffs are just one more thing that sort of might help differentiate the factions a little bit. Good old protectionism. And I mean, my idea for this feature goes far beyond the simple list of certain tariffs for certain materials. Like, I'm a real fan of the whole idea of kind of how do you enforce tariffs, which is also why this is on the future tab, I think, because the whole idea is that kind of the flip side of tariffs is always smuggling or smugglers or whatever. So if a faction decides to implement tariffs but doesn't invest resources in actually enforcing them, then why would people bother to pay them? This sort of thing. Like at the moment in Prosperous Universe, everything is very much static and fixed. Like if there is a rule in place, then it is enforced 100%. And I really like the idea of not having something being that black and white and exist like on a spectrum. So yeah, that's kind of the idea behind this as one example of a feature like that. You could of course expand that to a lot of other stuff as well.
All right, then we have land allocation, and that's something that has been on the list forever, basically since the first day. And it fits nicely into the politics context we have been adding to the game over the last few months and years, basically. But there's no design document or anything for it yet. Just an idea. Stock markets is also one of these candidates, but we feel the game is, or at least I do, that the game is too small to really have a good working stock market. So that's why we keep it at the end of the list. And then
we should not imply anything about the priority of the API.
That's true.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, API is also self-explanatory. Like at the moment, we have people scraping stuff from the game. It's sort of helping. I think you're helping them out, right, with certain
here and there.
hooks in the code. I think, but it would of course be a lot nicer to have a proper, well-structured API for that sort of stuff. But it's just not something that we have a concrete schedule for at this point. Same for the App Store integrations. So technically, Steam is an App Store, right? And we could imagine bringing Prosperous Universe to other App Stores as well. Although, to be honest, I'm not sure how the Epic Game Store works, but I could imagine that Apple doesn't like having a game like ours on the App Store. But the idea is, of course, the same. Kind of add the game to more App Stores to make it more accessible to more people. And maybe a bit more visible, but I think beyond Steam, the returns on investment on that sort of thing are dropping quickly. Let's put it this way.
Okay. And basically, we moved everything we haven't talked about yet that has been in the old roadmap to the Ideas tab, because that's something we don't have concrete plans for, and it most likely requires a reset anyways. So we put it on the ideas list. So it's not the idea is not lost, but well, it's so far out in the future.
Yeah. So we don't have. You also don't have to talk in detail about those.
No.
I mean, yeah. So I'm a big fan of the expanse, so I want to have PDCs and railguns, and that's why Conflict is on that list. But whether they ever going to make it into the game, I don't know. Julian is not up to date.
Why?
Steam is going to be more than 99% of your revenue in players, from my experience. Well, our experience is slightly different, but. I mean that's a whole topic in and of itself. I don't know. Have you ever done a proper Steam release review sort of thing? I don't think so, right?
No,
maybe a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, Steam is the big player, so there's no way around that.
But that's basically why I said it. I mean, we do have some revenue from Steam. We also get a considerable amount of signups from Steam. But revenue-wise, it's I don't know. I think 30% of the revenue comes from players that have signed up through Steam. I think that's the rough quota.
I think the number has increased, but yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like 99% of our revenue comes through Steam. And I mean, one important thing to mention here is that while we acquired these people through Steam, they almost immediately switch to the browser version if they like the game, and then they pay through the browser version as well. So we track that, and we're very happy that it works that way, because paying those 30% Steam tax is painful. Yeah. So let's go. I think we do have another 20 minutes or so, I guess. So maybe let's just go through questions, shall we?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, where to even start? Michi, you pick one first.
We have any plans to add microtransactions like standalone naming rights for plants and systems? Yeah, we talked about that. Maybe. Since Martin mentioned that we want to move away from the physical perks or phase them out, the idea was to introduce new digital perks or digital items, and the most obvious ones are the naming rights. And yeah, maybe we'll support that, and so players can buy a system name or a planet name on the website.
Yeah. I'd be all in favor of the mod plushie, but
yeah, me too.
Sure how they... what would that even look like?
A lot of hair.
Yeah, probably. And beanies and shirts with a logo, I think you can actually get. We have a very dusty old Spreadshirt store that you can actually go to and buy stuff. It doesn't receive a lot of love, but I think technically you can buy things there. Maybe we have to look into that again at some point.
That's an interesting question. Can you limit the storefronts so you can only sell or buy from certain people or corporations? I think we haven't talked about that yet when designing or talking about the design of that feature. But that would be interesting. You could kind of create an intercorporation trade storefront, or maybe just a corporation internal storefront.
Company store.
A company store.
Yeah.
That sounds definitely interesting. I guess it would make trading in the corporation between the corporation members really easy.
Yeah, a bit easier than having a shared warehouse, I guess.
Yeah. And
if you're not that friends with your corporation members, then you can have an internal storefront and trade that way. Yeah.
PvP on system names. That's a great idea. Naming a system is $1. The second person coming and wanting to name that system, it's $2.
Oh, that's what you had in mind. I was thinking PDCs and railguns, but yeah. But all jokes aside, I mean, we always had this idea that if we ever have PvP in the game, then the military conflict shouldn't actually impact someone directly. Like you don't get your bases nuked or something. But the power to rename a system, for example, would be one of those things that sort of could be the spoils of war.
But get your bases nuked, but you get your bases named.
Yes. And of course, text to the ground. But yeah. For a fundraiser, have people bid to rename one to more prom. Yeah. This is a game design question. I can't answer that one about the gateways, costs and benefits.
Which one?
What are your thoughts about the cost versus benefits of the gateways as they stand? We know the upkeep is pretty costly at 500k a week. Fuel costs we aren't sure about yet.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen how it plays out in practice, I think. It's really hard to predict 100% the cost benefit, but if it turns out to be really too beneficial or not beneficial enough, then we will tweak it, of course.
Yeah. There's going to be a tweaking phase, I expect as much.
But I think the base price or the building costs of gateways should remain pretty high, right? Because those are really kind of landmark infrastructure projects. And we want them to be expensive. But we can talk about the upkeep.
Yeah. And here, there's a question. I will reiterate my question from earlier. After the gateway release, what is planned for 2025? Someone wants concrete timelines.
Timelines, okay. So
I mean, on the planned tab, as I said earlier, the top 2 or so items on there, they are pretty fixed. They're next up, I think. Yeah. So multi-commodity contracts and that license gifting thing, which isn't a huge thing. Like license gifting, I figure it's going to be 1 or 2 weeks of work, and it's also for, which is rather unusual these days, also going to be involving me because the backend systems are involved. So these are up next, and between the gateways and those features, there's of course going to be quite a bit of quality of life and maintenance stuff that we plan on implementing. I think one of them it's not actually on the roadmap, but I think I'm allowed to talk about this, the whole wrapping stuff up thing. You know what I mean?
Hmm? I don't know what you're talking about. What?
I have a hard time remembering names tonight. The ability to wrap up consumables in the shape of a new material.
I think we can talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, as Martin said, there's going to be quite a lot of quality of life improvements after the gateway release, bug fixes, of course. We have plenty of tickets already prepared that we can do and implement and fix. And I saw another question earlier. Is there going to be a larger cargo bay so you can actually transport the gateway segments? And the answer is yes. It's going to be released with the infrastructure update. But what Martin was talking about is we want to create a couple of new materials or commodities that actually contain consumables for a couple of days for a certain workforce. And that's also, at least we see it that way, a quality of life improvement. Right now, if you have a base with like 4 different kinds of workforces, you have to buy and lots of consumables. And we want to create, for example, a Pioneer or basic consumable crate, or I don't know what the concrete name will be, and you can buy that, and if you unpack that in your base, it will provide enough consumables for, say, 100 Pioneers for 3 days or so.
And I think the reason why it doesn't show up on the roadmap is I think that there's not actually that much development going on there, because it's basically implemented by means of new materials and buildings, I guess, right? So it's not actually something that.
Yeah, I think we're going
to the unpacking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to release that with the maintenance release. It's no feature release, but it's on itself. Yeah, packaged consumables will come, and they will cost a bit more because somebody will have to package them.
It's going to be actual packaging material. Actually, really excited for packaged consumables. Yes. All right. What else? I want a translator badge. That's a good idea. We should do a
I have a ticket for that. It's going to be.
There's actually a ticket.
It's going to be in the next maintenance release as well.
Awesome.
Okay. More questions, please.
Someone asked earlier, any plans to deal with the infinite storage problem of commodity exchanges? But I don't think we have any concrete plans. Bunch of ideas, but nothing concrete.
Will there be market makers for package supplies? I don't think so. We haven't talked about that yet, but I don't think so.
I don't think so. That's definitely something. I mean, it is literally something for players that have that problem.
Yeah.
So I don't see why the market makers would provide these materials.
So the plan is gateways, then quality of life and maintenance. Yes, that's the plan.
Yeah. And then someone also asked about, how do you prevent possible pay-to-win practices from pro gifting with people just buying a bunch of pro and then selling the time? I mean, there's no official pro license trading in the game, but it's a good point. How do we deal with that? I don't think so. Could we sanction that? Probably not. there might actually be something in our official terms and conditions that officially forbids to trade in-game assets for real money. I'm not sure.
I think it's in there, yeah.
It could be. But I mean, obviously in practice, it's more or less impossible to enforce. But it would be a very shady offer, I guess. And people should not go for it. It's I mean, it's a good point. It's something that we should probably consider before implementing this, or before rolling it out, rather, and then maybe kind of clarifying these the rules in that regard.
Circling back to the supplies, Andre asks, if there are no supply market makers, would it be impossible to kickstart an economy from scratch? I'm not sure if I get your question right, but the idea is not to remove the brokers for rations, drinking water, and so on. They will stay there, and you can still buy and sell individual consumables.
Yeah. And I mean, kickstarting the economy from scratch is a whole different animal anyway, which is really a relatively brief post-reset sort of situation. During which we will probably have a totally different set of market makers anyway. I mean, that's just pure speculation. It's been a while since we had that situation. Are there any plans to change the new player experience? As a new player myself, understanding how to use the Apex was challenging at first. I mean, in an iterative way, I guess. Yes. So I mean, it's sort of hard to kind of hide the inherent complexity of Prosperous Universe, but we are obviously looking into ways to making it easier, I guess. I think it's also sort of a part of the UI refresh topic, but nothing concrete. And we probably have a whole bunch of tickets and stuff on details for that, but I'm not sure.
I think
no big project. It's not like we have like a milestone or a project that says, okay, wait, let's do new player experience improvements now.
Yeah, and I think we have to do a new player survey again and see what the problems are, because we improved the new player experience quite a bit, but that was like a while ago, almost 2 years now.
Yes.
A long
Probably.
while. And actually I have no clue what the main problems are right now. Here and there some questions pop up that indicate if someone has a problem, but we don't have any numbers or hard facts on what's the number one problem for new players at the moment. We'd have to do another survey to find out.
Yeah, and data-wise, we can tell you roughly what points in the game people reach, but that only tells you so much, right? Since there's no clear path in Prosperous Universe that you have to take. So there's not a predefined sequence of steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that you have to follow. You don't know why a person did not reach a particular feature in the game. You just know they didn't. The best thing you can do for new players is getting them on the Discord.
Yeah,
this is what saved me. Yeah. Which is great on the one hand, but also problematic on the other. Like, it's just not everything's a cup of tea to go that way.
Multi-monitor support would be nice. Stretching across doesn't always work well. I think you can have 2 tabs on 2 different monitors or displays, using 2 different screens in-game. Then you don't have that problem. If you want to have one really big screen, that doesn't work too well.
Then you need one really big screen.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
You can even use 5 monitors or 10 if you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole idea, right?
Yeah.
Can someone post the token picture of a Wall Street trader with his Bloomberg terminal, please?
Any dev thoughts on how the ubiquitous grants such as the 1 million ADI grant affect player retention? That's a tough one. I have the feeling, or I feel that the grants have helped quite a lot of players kind of get into the game and build or have a quicker early game than if you wouldn't have that grant, and maybe they stay longer. But we don't have player retention kind of analytics that are that granular. We can say, oh, that one got a grant over or loan over 1 million. Let's look how they do. And I'm not sure if we could do that. It sounds difficult.
Everything's possible.
It might be possible, yeah.
Just a matter of time, of how much development time we invest.
But it would be interesting how new players learn about these grants. Because I'm pretty sure they learn about it on Discord, and maybe if they're active in-game. And I think on some worlds they are actually advertised. But maybe we need better ways to communicate from a government to the companies that settle on a planet about such things. Because sometimes, I mean, not in all cases, but I guess some governments would be really interested in players growing quickly and paying taxes and stuff, and would be willing to pay, or corporations would be willing to pay those loans.
We did have the government notice board idea before, also as part of the politics feature set.
Have you considered getting a few long-time players into game design discussions? I mean, you might not be aware of it, but you are part of that. I mean, I think I can only speak for myself, but we always kind of look at what especially the long-term players have to say.
Yeah.
In terms of actual direct discussions, not sure. I mean, there's quite a bit of discussion going on in behind-the-scenes channels, right?
Yeah, and in the forums, of course.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's something that we can also just mention while we're at it, because the forums do exist, and they're the perfect place for having long-form discussions about game design topics. I think people kind of see the Discord a lot, and Discord is great for this ad hoc direct communication. But I think the forums are really something that people could and should use more, because that's really where these discussions can be had.
Yeah.
Oh, here. Question from Martin. Any progress on user-sided account deletion, or is it still a manual process? Sorry. It's still a manual process. Actually thought about that today for unrelated reasons, but it is still manual, and it's actually not that high on my list of priorities. Like, we do get requests for account deletions every now and then, but they're very far in between. So it's
No.
I agree. We should really have it. I mean, it's something that is just fair to have. People should be able to delete their own accounts, but it's at the same time, our list of stuff to do is just infinitely long, and doesn't exist at the moment.
All right, maybe one last question.
Make it count.
I haven't selected one yet.
Any plans to create folders? I mean, maybe don't have to limited to one question. But here, any plans to create folders for inventories? I wouldn't call them folders, but I have been floating the idea of virtual inventory for a long time. Basically meaning that you can split your physical inventories in virtual ones as a pro feature, of course. And then you can do exactly that. Like you can sort of specify which production buildings are supposed to supply themselves from and which storage and where they should put their output. And then you can do exactly that and can split them apart and, for example, keep stuff from getting eaten by your population because you put it in the non-population store or something like that. So this idea exists, but I don't think we have a concrete work item for that. All right. Maybe we should do this more often because we have a lot of questions now. But I think it's time. We've hit 1.5 hours. I think that's been our time box, our unofficial one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
So, any last words, Michi?
No. Besides, thanks for watching. It was great talking to you.
Yes.
And yeah, we should do that more often. It was quite insightful.
Yeah. Also pretty awesome that we have like constantly more than, I think, been constantly above 50 at peaks, so like 70 or 80 people watching. That's pretty awesome. And the amount of questions shows.
Yeah.
All right then. I would say, if we don't see each other again, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy New Year.
Buy Pro Time, it's cheaper now.
Yes, don't forget we have that sale going on, 15% off on Pro Time. Ends on 0:00 on the 27th UTC. That's how long we have to buy at the reduced price, which happens to be the Christmas holidays here in Germany. So.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.